Mike, the Miami Heat, and they put this mega team together, and yet when they play the good teams, they've only won one time. The Lakers. And I say good teams. The Bulls. It just seems like anybody, the San Antonio Spurs, they get blown out.
They have a
Magic.
Bad record in close games. They're terrible at the end of games. And they have not done well against the teams that they're going to have to beat in order to win the championship in the playoffs. So that's the problem.
And they always say there's no crying in baseball. It's come up now. There's no crying in basketball. We can get into some of the reasons in a second, but I jumped into this. After their loss the other day against, I guess it was the Bulls, their head coach comes into the press conference and says there's guys crying in the locker room right now, which I think he was just trying to show that these guys care.
Yeah, I absolutely.
I don't think he's trying to. I don't know if it was the smartest thing to say. That might be the start to the end of this coach too. But what is your take with what's going on with this? Start with the crying game.
Well, first of all, if there were guys sitting in the locker room crying, that to me indicates that they do care, and they are incredibly frustrated. I think LeBron James and Dwayne Wade are incredibly frustrated right now that this isn't working, and that they have this sort of permanent villain role. America wants to see them fail, clearly. So that's I think if Spoelstra would have said,
that's the head
they're
coach.
Devastated. Instead of they're crying, just they're devastated, we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
Right.
It's that simple. But the interesting thing about this is the relationship between the coach and the players, which is such a fragile thing in the NBA. I think NBA players respond to the coach's resume and reputation as much as anything else, as much as anything he does in practice, anything he does X and O wise. And Pat Riley is sitting up in the stands watching this.
Well,
you know what I mean? And I think just look at it another way. Phil Jackson. If Phil Jackson was their coach, they'd be running the triangle offense. That would take away a lot of this who's going to stand there with the ball all the time issue, in addition to the respect and reputation thing that he would bring. So it's an interesting situation. This has become a really interesting basketball team that has enlivened the regular season, which generally nobody cares about because it doesn't mean anything in the NBA. It's at least interesting.
A couple of things. One, yes, LeBron James is supposed to be the star. Dwayne Wade's supposed to be the star. Neither one of them have hit the big shot this year in the clutch shot. Dwayne Wade has in the past, but he's also missed some. Bosh was the one that supposedly was crying because Amari Stoudemire on one of his tweets that I get said that Bosh was crying. Well, the last couple of games, Bosh has shot so poorly, I can see why he's crying. But the Heat have James Posey, who won the three-point contest this year. They've got on that bench guy they got from Boston who can hit from the outside. I can't think of his name right now. But they've got other outside shooters that will come to me as soon as we get done doing the same. They have got Miller's another one that are clutch. That I cannot believe I can't think of the other guy's name. But they've got guys that can do this. So I think a veteran coach sometimes would say, okay, LeBron, we're going to go to Miller or Posey or the guy I can't think of.
Eddie House.
Eddie House. Thank you. Thank you. And go to somebody like that. Is it too late in the year to bring in Pat Riley? Are we too far into the season? Or could Pat, he took over the Lakers sort of in a weird thing from Walt.
That's a very good point, Starkey. That's a very good point.
He's done this before.
I don't think it's too late to bring in Pat Riley, and I kind of feel bad for Erik Spoelstra. I think he's a pretty good coach, but he's a young guy, and I think there clearly is this thing where he does not have the reputation and the sort of mojo to build these guys' respect. So I do think it's a very real possibility. Pat Riley's getting old, and he probably doesn't want to do it again. But clearly, for this team to maximize its potential, and it's not too late for them to do that. I mean, I think there's a little bit of alarmism in this. They still got a chance to do great things. But at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of this experiment with LeBron James going to Miami, there was this question of who's going to have the ball and how are they going to handle it at the end of the game? That question has not only not been answered, that question has turned into a bigger problem as the years go on.
One more thing. Jay Cutler gets crucified with the Bears because he shows no emotion in that sport of football. Yet in basketball, because supposedly these guys were crying in a locker room, maybe the wrong term, they're too emotional.
Yeah.
Which way is it with sports?
Well, it's ridiculous, and I think you got to blame us for that a little bit in the media. Not us personally, of course, because our judgment is exemplary. But in general, the sports media, I think that's on them a little bit. Relax.